Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 5 recap and playoff preview for Major League Balatro. Also, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Without further ado, let's get into the recap of the Week 5 games. The first game of the week was a fight at the top of the Red Division as Edzi, who was already secured first place in the division, was taking on Nandre, who could just about secure a playoff spot with a match win. The first game was Plasma Deck Gold Stake. No surprise there with Edzi, a Gold Stake player, and Nandre, a famous Plasma Deck player at this point. Edzi did take a commanding 4-1 life lead in the first game, and then in the preceding PvP battle was able to use Glass Cards and Chad to knock out Nandre from game 1 as he was unable to compete with this re-triggering molt. In game 2, we would also be looking at Plasma Deck Gold Stake. This seed was much rougher than the previous, and Nandre had Edzi down to his final life pretty early on in the game as both lost lives to blinds. However, he was unable to get out of the big blind after not being able to get driver's license online in time. This led to the 2-0 sweep for Edzi, who would finish the regular season undefeated, and Nandre looking for help to then make the play-in games. Our next game this week would actually be a game that was supposed to be played in week 4 as Scooty and C-Dubs were able to make up their match that was scheduled for the week prior. The key here is Scooty needing 4 total points from his 2 games this week to take over that play-in spot over Nandre. The first match would be played on Red Deck White Stake against C-Dubs. Scooty got rolling with an early sock and buskin and some solid Exmo help in Campfire. C-Dubs attempted to catch up utilizing Obelisk and DNA, but never got a good card to copy. Scooty would take game 1 in a 4-0 life sweep. In game 2, the pair battled it out on Erratic Deck White Stake. Scooty was able to get ahead in the glass card department once again and snowball a first PvP battle win into 4 in a row as he swept C-Dubs once again in this game. This meant that Scooty took a 2-0 match win and only needed one more game win, one more point, to secure his play-in spot, with this game against Mouth coming up later in the week. It was time for my match with Dan, aka Halion, and while there were still many scenarios that could play out in the league, including ones where we both make the play-in, one thing was clear heading into this game. Whoever won this matchup would secure their spot in the top 3, which means they would at least be able to compete in the play-ins in week 6, and they had a decent chance at winning the division. In game 1, I surprised Halion by not picking high stakes, but instead choosing Magic Deck. Halion, of course, went with White Stake, and Halion took a commanding 4-1 life lead in the game, but I was working on econ and deck manipulation. Eventually, I started to use my glass cards, edging out victories in the PvP rounds until we got to the final PvP round as I fought my way back to tie it 1 life to 1 life. And this is where I was able to somewhat soar past Halion utilizing a Bloodstone and Sun Tarot card that I luckily had found in the final rerolls heading into this PvP battle, and I was able to take game 1. Game 2 would be played on the infamous green deck. As an expert in green deck economy, I took an early money and life advantage and never looked back, winning 3 lives to 1 off the back of a photo Chad build. Looking into the final PvP round, I was able to secure the match win and secure my place in the play-in rounds. Halion would now be looking for help from Nito, who would need to take a 2-0 victory over Raffle for Halion to make the play-ins at this point. Mouth and Scooty came into this game knowing that Gold Stake would likely be the arena for their battles, and Scooty was looking for 1 game win, while Mouth was playing with no pressure. This game, he was able to approach it maybe somewhat carefree, but he also approached it very precisely. On Red Deck Gold Stake, Mouth took a very quick victory, winning after just 2 PvP blinds due to Scooty losing 2 lives to the small and big blinds, the key being a leveled up 3 of a kind as well as blueprint in the duo for Mouth, and Scooty just unable to match the points they were putting up. Ghost Deck Gold Stake would be arena for game number 2. Both players took a chance on the idol, but due to a lack of other scoring jokers, Scooty was unable to beat the ante for big blind and dropped the match 2-0 to Mouth. This meant we now had a 3-way tie for third place in the red division. Using head-to-head points between Nandre, Mouth, and Scooty, Nandre would take the spot by 1 point over the other two and get that third place spot in the red division and make his way into the playing games. Nito versus Raffle was now looking like the game of the week, as Nito could play the role of spoiler and possibly send Haley into the play-in games, knocking Raffle out of playoff contention. Game 1 would be played on Abandoned Deck Gold Stake, where the duo were scoring within 5% of each other's PvP round points just about every single round. But Raffle had in fact taken a 4-1 life lead. We headed into the next PvP round, and it turns out this would be no different. Raffle was able to score 79,000 to Nito's 72,000, with the biggest difference being the Eternal Acrobat that Raffle had found earlier in the game. Game 2 would be played on Ghost Deck Black Stake, and Nito dominated from the jump. The key difference in her build being an early smiley face Joker to pair with the Dusk Chat and Photograph that both Raffle and Nito ended up finding. Nito would end up winning 3 lives to none, and by a margin of just times 1.5 on the final PvP round. In the final game, we headed back to Gold Stake, this time on the Zodiac deck, and Raffle worked his Gold Stake magic, playing extremely well from the start, making a load of blue steel cards that were able to help him level up his pairs and eventually take the game in a 4-0 life sweep after he drew pretty perfectly on the final PvP round. Raffle had knocked out Halen and was now awaiting on the results of Gothic's game to see if he had won the blue division, as he had the tiebreaker over both Gothic and myself. So Gothic would need to win over the amount of points that Raffle had total in the division to take home the blue division championship. Doc had already stamped his ticket to the plans, and C-Dubs was knocked out of playoff contention when the pair battled it out on Friday night, but it was still looking to be a fantastic game. The first game was battled on White Stake Erratic Deck, where Doc did Doc Spectre things, totaling up hundreds of dollars in this game, and ended up winning the match with $97 left in the bank. His main source of points was his 4-of-a-kind levels and lucky card hits, and he was able to take down C-Dubs 4 lives to none. The second game would be much closer on the Zodiac deck, White Stake. However, eventually, down to his final 2 lives, Dr. Spectre got the perfect build online when Ancient Joker hit his hearts alongside his Bloodstone, Polychrome Glass Kings. He was able to put up an outstanding E17 score to Dubs' E11 score to finish the 2-0 match sweep and propel himself to second place in the red division with an impressive 12 total points. The final game of the week was a complicated one. Due to some technical difficulties, this game actually took place over the course of 2 different days. Bear and Gothic were able to complete 1 game on Tuesday and then had to finish it off on Sunday morning, with everything to play for on Gothic's side of things, and that being the Blue Division title. In the first game, we played on Black Deck White Stake, and both players used all 6 Joker spots to their advantage. The key difference, though, in the game would be Bear creating double Dusk and then utilizing DNA to make several copies of a Red Seal Glass King. This re-triggering X-Molt was able to score E11 in the final PvP round and take game 1 for Bear. Fast forward to Sunday, where Gothic needs back-to-back game wins to win the Blue Division, or otherwise he'd be stuck in the playing games with yours truly. The match, once again, was head to Black Deck White Stake. Once again, down to 2 lives, Bear was able to pull through, utilizing a timely Ancient Joker versus Gothic's Idol that just simply wasn't rolling the correct card. And similar to game 1, Bear put up exactly E11 in a close game to close it out. This ended the regular season for the league and pushed Raffle to the champion of the Blue Division, meaning Gothic would join me, Dr. Spectre, and Andre in the play-ins. Now let's take a look at your final regular season standings. First, the Blue Division, extraordinarily tight throughout. Raffle took home the championship with 11 total points, as he had the tiebreaker over me by beating me in the head-to-head matchup. Both of us scoring 11 points. Gothic coming in third with 10 points. Bear missing out on the playoffs by a single point. If he was able to get one round win off of Raffle or Hailing, he would be in the plans, as obviously he had the head-to-head tiebreaker with that 2-0 over Gothic. But he finished the season in fourth with 9 points. Hailing in fifth with 8 points, a fantastic season. And Nito, extremely tough opponent, finishing the season in last place, but with a respectable 5 points and a ton of great experience under her belt. Looking at the red division, Edzi finishes a perfect season with 15 total points, 10 round wins, and 5 match wins. He played phenomenal. Funny enough, the person closest to beating Edzi would be our last place competitor in C-Dubs, who only mustered up 2 points on the season, but played extremely well, and again, was the closest person to actually taking some points off of Edzi, as he had a very close game where he could have won that matchup. Coming in second was Dr. Spectre with 12 points, coming out of the season 4-1 total in match wins, only losing Edzi a very respectable point total. And then we have our three-way tie with Nandre, Scooty, and Malf, all at 7 points. Nandre, of course, winning the tiebreaker, because when you look at the head-to-head games between all three of them, Nandre had one more point than the rest. So Nandre, Dr. Spectre head to the play-ins. Edzi head straight to the Final Four on May 17th. Raffle straight to the Final Four on May 17th. Zaino, myself, and Gothic are in the play-ins. Let's now look at the schedule for the week ahead. First, for the play-ins, I take on Dr. Spectre on Monday, May 12th at 5 p.m. Eastern. We then have Gothic versus Dr. Spectre on Wednesday, May 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Thursday, May 15th, we have Gothic Lord UK versus Nandre at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the final game for the play-ins, myself versus Nandre, Friday, May 16th at 4 p.m. Eastern. All must-win games for all of us, as this round robin is extremely tight to make the league finals on May 17th. In that schedule, the first game on Saturday, May 17th will be at 11 a.m. Eastern, where Raffle will take on whoever won the play-ins at, again, 11 a.m. Then we have Edzi versus whoever comes in second in the play-ins at 1 p.m. Eastern, again on Saturday. And then the finals will be played at 3 p.m. Eastern. Also note, there is a scenario where we have one more really early morning game. We'll get into that in the next section of the video. So a quick little overlook at how the play-ins work. So it's a round robin where the two players in each division play the two players in the other division, not playing the person from their own division. This is to, cut down on total games, and whoever comes in first and second move on to the playoffs. Since Raffle had less points than Edzi, Raffle will take on whoever scores the most amount of points in the play-in, and Edzi will take on whoever scores the second amount of total points. Obviously, with a tight little round robin like this, we have to have tiebreakers. The first tiebreaker will be easy head-to-head points. That's simple. And then we get into a couple of situations where I just want to go over it. If the tie competitors are from the same division, so if I tie with Gothic or Nandre ties with Dr. Spectre, for that second place spot, we will have a best of 3 opener on Saturday, May 17th before the Final Four to determine who makes it in and plays in that following game. If the tied competitors are from separate divisions, this is only possible in a 3 or 4-way tie. Then we're going to use the total lives against in all matches to determine the orders. So, if Dr. Spectre beats me 2 lives to nothing, that's 2 lives against for me, and we'll be keeping track of that. So again, most likely, if there is a tie that matters for that second spot, it would be, Gothic and I, or Nandre and Dr. Spectre, and we'll just have a best of 3 to decide it before the Final Four. But if we do get some weird situation where all 4 of us end up tied, we're not going to have time for us to basically replay the round robin, so we're just going to use lives against to determine the order. And of course, if I tie with Doc, or if Gothic ties with Nandre or something like that, well, we played each other, so whoever won the head-to-head is going to be the one who takes that tiebreaker. Our first playing game to preview is myself versus Dr. Spectre. And this game is the one I'm looking forward to most, but I'm obviously participating, so I'm extremely biased. Doc Spectre, very close friend of mine. I feel like at this point probably the person that I talk to the most in our little creator Balatro community. I have been doing his shorts editing. We have played tons of multiplayer against each other on and off stream, and we know each other's game pretty well at this point. So that's what's going to complicate things here. Is there's a lot of times we're playing against one another and we can verbally call out what the other person is doing based off the shop. And I think a key in this game for maybe both of us is to not read too much into that. Just because you know what the other person is going to do doesn't mean you need to change course on what you think is the most optimal path in the game. I do think all of these matches are probably going to be played on white stake difficulty. I wouldn't be shocked if Dr. Spectre tries to take me to a higher stake difficulty, but in the end, we both feel that we can optimize very well, and we probably don't want to introduce the randomness of the Joker tag mechanics. So I think the highest I would be willing to go if I were to choose a different stake, which, I'm tempted to, would be purple stake. I don't know about Doc. I do know Doc wants to play on the Zodiac deck. He wants all of those creative options open to him when it comes to tarot cards, when it comes to planet cards, when it comes to just seeing more things in the shop because he's so good at economy. I probably want to move away from that. I think with my multiplayer experience, I feel more comfortable, being able to still find what I need on the other decks. So I'll be very curious to see how this one plays out. I do think, again, Doc is very, very good at optimizing to get his build eventually online, and it's going to be the key that I've mentioned in other Dr. Spectre games. Do I go and try and just take the first 4 lives away from him, or do I try to match the greatest Balatro player in the world when it comes to optimization on exactly that, on optimization? Even with all my experience in multiplayer, it's still a tough call to make on how to kind of approach that game, and of course it depends on what jokers and what cards pop up. So this one's going to be very tight. I have no way to call it, but I do think it is going to be a very exciting and interesting watch on Monday. The next game is Gothic Lord UK versus Dr. Spectre. And Gothic has shown kind of what I was just saying about my game, the willingness to play higher stakes difficulties, but he doesn't really want the randomness of the Joker tags to interfere with the gameplay. So he often chooses purple stake. And I do think he is going to take Dr. Spectre to that purple stake, a stake where, obviously Doc is familiar with everything available there, but maybe isn't familiar with playing exactly that level of difficulty where you don't have to worry about the Joker tags, but you do have to worry about the higher score requirement, the -1 discard, just little things like that. And maybe it makes it a little bit harder for Doc to optimize. I think this is a place that Gothic may have a slight advantage, is that higher stake difficulty. And when it comes to deck choice, I do think when it becomes Doc Spectre's choice to choose a deck or stake, he's just going to choose white stake. I do think Gothic's going to take him to black deck. Once again, maybe slightly limiting the amount of things Doc can do to optimize his gameplay. It's not that there isn't an efficient way to optimize on something like black deck, right? But you do have that one less hand, which just means you get to throw away one less hand to go after that extra mail-in rebate value, for example. Or sometimes, Dr. Spectre, maybe he's a little greedy. He goes after that play and then he costs himself a life. And I say that as someone who has personally done that way too many times on black deck, even on white stake, because in multiplayer you want to get every ounce of efficiency out of every single blind, and sometimes you go a little too far. On the flip side, what Gothic really needs to worry about is probably deck manipulation. I think it is what was able to be the difference in the games that him and Baird played, and even the games that didn't get finished due to technical difficulties. In all those instances, Baird was actually, I would say, a little bit ahead on where you want to be for deck manipulation when that comes to glass cards, when that comes to thinning out the deck, when that comes to seals. So that is the place that Gothic is going to have to really make sure he can do good enough to match Dr. Spectre enough when playing this game. We now move on to the preview of Nandre versus Gothic Lord UK, and we know Nandre wants to play Plasma deck, and I do think this could throw a little bit of a wrench into Gothic's gameplay just because it is so different. But I'll be honest, I think if anyone in this league is prepared to take on Nandre on Plasma deck, it is Gothic, and it kind of has to do with the point we just talked about in the preview with Gothic versus Dr. Spectre. I think Gothic maybe sometimes struggles a little bit with deck manipulation, but he's very, very good at choosing the right tarot cards, at choosing the right jokers, at just playing the blinds efficiently, discarding efficiently. And I actually think joker selection is more important in Plasma deck than it is on any other deck, because you have to decide when to switch from molt or from chips to molt. You have to decide how many chips you need to win that PvP battle, to win those blinds. I think Gothic is extraordinarily talented at that, which means Nandre's kind of advantage on the plasma deck is a little bit less here than I think it would be with any other competitor, including myself. I still think Nandre chooses plasma deck. It'll be interesting to see if Gothic knows this and decides to choose a deck instead of a stake when it does become his first choice. And if he does do that, how does Nandre reply? I mean, he knows obviously how to play other decks, but he has played, I think, like the last 6 games on Plasma, so it would be a very interesting watch. In that case, I do think Nandre either goes to an extreme, either goes gold stake, let's go all out and play, the hardest difficulty, or he goes white stake and allows for the most open interpretation to min-maxing when it comes to the multiplayer game. So very interesting match here, because I do think Gothic is more prepared on Plasma than most people, which will change kind of the deck and stake choice options, but it's also going to change obviously how the game is played itself. And the final preview of the week, myself versus Nandre. Nandre and I have battled it out probably 20 plus times, on and off stream now in little scrims. We know each other's games pretty well. And I would say that I'm not excited about playing Plasma deck, because I do think it introduces some randomness that's not very fun to play around. At the same time, I have to decide, if I choose Plasma, or if I choose a different deck, am I okay with Nandre choosing Gold Stake, for example, right? Which offers more randomness to the game, Gold Stake or Plasma deck? Because I have so much experience lately playing ranked Balatro on stream that I'm just very used to white stake multiplayer. I think I'm very, very good at it. I think I've become very optimal at how to approach it. And when considering that, which one is more of a variance from what I think I'm good at? Is it Plasma deck is more of a variance, and all the other decks due to how different the scoring mechanics are, or is it Gold Stake is more of a variance? Either way, I do think I almost would feel more comfortable picking second and just responding to whatever Nandre chooses, not even allowing myself the choice here. If he picks Plasma deck, I go white stake. If he picks Gold Stake, I pick a deck that I feel I'm very good at. But I do think this game versus Nandre, I'm somehow less prepared than the game against Dr. Spectre. And that's not to say that, I should be less prepared. But Doc Spectre, obviously, again, I think we can all call him the GOAT of Balatro, at least in this moment. And you'd think, that would be the one I'm nervous about. I'm nervous about this game against Nandre because Nandre offers some crazy gameplay, and he offers some crazy decision making that I've had scrims against him where I was like, there's just no way I could have won, because he made a crazy good play. He made some interesting choices, or again, that Plasma deck Gold Stake, that Plasma deck even white stake can just offer such a unique gameplay style that Nandre has become an expert at, that I don't think anyone else is an expert in the league at. So in a weird way, I'm not looking forward to this game, but I do think it's going to be great entertainment, so I hope you're able to tune in. Thank you for watching the video. This is going to end it. I am going to hopefully upload a preview for the finals on Saturday, on Friday, if I have time. Once again, going over the schedule, Rafa will be taking on the first place player from the division at 11 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, May 17th. Then that'll be followed by Edzy, who's going to be playing against the second place player from the plans, the second place player from the Plains at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the championship, the finals, are at 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. We may also have a play-in to those playoffs if I am tied with Gothic or Doctor is tied with Nandre before all those matches take place. But make sure you clear your schedule for Saturday, May 17th. It is going to be a crazy good time. All of these games, by the way, will be best of fives for this Final Four playoff, and we can't wait to crown a victor to our Season 1 of Major League Balatro. Hopefully, I see you in the chat, see you in the streams. Hopefully, see you on Friday with another preview. And most importantly, I hope I see you on Saturday with our big finale, our Final Four on that day. Until then,